Okay, so in the previous episode we made a very primitive media player, so when you click on an episode, it starts playing that episode. Unfortunately, it doesn't persist the playback across like page navigation because it's getting HTML back from the server, completely re-rendering, so you lose your progress, but for the time being, I'm happy with that. It's simple and it works. What I want to do now is just implement the search functionality so that if you copy paste a feed URL and that feed already exists, I want it to redirect to the page for that particular feed. So right now the search box, it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to go into base HTML where that's defined, and we're just going to add like an action here of search, and we're going to name the search input. We're going to just call this search here, and we're going to go to our podcast's URL, and we're going to create a new path called search. I'm going to call the search view. So then I need to go into my views and say search. It's going to give us a request. I'm just going to add a breakpoint here to make sure that it's getting hit. Hopefully our server has reloaded. I'm going to take this here, copy, paste. Doesn't appear to have done anything. Let me try going back home. Let me refresh the page, restart the server, just to double check that everything is behaving. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to paste that in, click search. Okay, that seems to have hit my endpoint, so I can look things up with search here, and I can probably do something like podcast.objects.get, where the feed link is equal to request.get search. See if that works. Okay, that's returned the podcast, so then I can redirect to that podcast, hopefully. At the moment it's complaining that I didn't return a valid response, which is understandable. So in here I can say the search term is equal to the request.get search. If there is a search term, we're going to look at the podcasts where the feed link is equal to the search term. And if there is, we're going to return, I'm going to redirect to the absolute URL for that podcast. So I want to return redirect. If not, we're just going to hit this breakpoint. So let's see what happens in this scenario. We go back to our home page, copy our link here. I don't know why it keeps redirecting like that. Probably because I'm accidentally clicking. Oh look, this URL, this href is way bigger than it should be. Let me just fix that. Podcast list. Am I not closing this tag correctly? This is interesting. I'm wrapping the card in a href, but why is the href so big? Let me do background, color, green. How big is our href? That's interesting. It seems to be not contained properly within this card component. Ah well, let's fix that one later and focus on the search for the time being. So I paste that in there. That's redirected me to the Talk Python to me page. If I'm on this page, what happens if I just type in search? Okay, that seems to work. And if I just do test, that's going to say podcast matching the query does not exist. Because that is a podcast does not exist exception. So we can do, maybe inside our views, we can say try except podcast does not exist, and then else we only want to return if we don't hit an exception. If we do hit an exception, then I guess we can just continue and say that no results have been found. It's complaining about a syntax error there. And then maybe we just want to return like a default template. So let's return render request, let's say search.html, with the search term is going to be, how can we do this? Let's say search is going to be the search term. Let's try this again. Cannot access podcast. It's interesting because it should be that, I'm guessing. Template does not exist. Yep, that's understandable. Let's create a file, search.html, and much like the other contents of our templates, we're going to do this, end block. Let's just include the search term. Refresh this. It doesn't like our search here. That's interesting. Maybe I just keep refreshing or restart the server for a new template. Let's see what happens. Let's go back here. Type test. Template does not exist still. Oh, perhaps I have to prefix this with podcasts. That would make sense. So podcasts, search.html, and there is nothing. Why is there no? Because it's not a search term, is it? It's just search. So we can show test. And in fact, we can actually just get this from the request.get. Maybe like this instead. Will that work inside my template? Okay, so we can say could not pass. Interesting. Django template lookup request query string. Request.get query string lookup. Dictionary. There must be a way of doing a dictionary lookup in here. Let's see. Oh, you can just use dot notations maybe, so let's try that. Okay, awesome. So we can say no results found for blah, because if not, we're going to actually fetch the podcast and then return it. Let's say container. Oh, I do want this in the block. And then let's add some sensible padding at the top. Yeah, that seems to work. And maybe we can add like an alert. Maybe let's have a look. I like this one, the warning alert. So let's say div. How do we get the bold? Do we want an example link? Nah, let's just keep it like this for the time being. Refresh this, or save and then refresh. Okay, so no results found for test. Alright, that seems to be working great. So if we paste in a URL, it redirects us to that page. If we don't find anything, we get a default result not found page. What about if we just do talk Python to me? It's going to say no results found, so let's try and make it a bit nicer and say in views. We probably want to do some detection to see if this is like a URL to start with, so we can say like from URL lib pass import URL pass. Just give this a try in the terminal and see what happens. From URL lib pass import URL pass. Might just try and pass test. Okay, so it doesn't throw an exception, but I won't get like a scheme or a net location. So if I contrast that with what happens if I do this, but I get like a scheme and a netlog. What happens if I don't have the scheme itself? There seems to be no nice resilient way to do this. How could I detect if something is like a URL or not? Maybe if it contains slashes? Or maybe let's just try something a bit simpler, you know. let's just try again. So instead of this, we could do podcast.get title, where the title is like the search term, and then just return the podcast. Let's try it this way. So let's go here. Let's say talk Python to me. Okay, and that redirects us to that page. Now, is that necessarily the behavior that we want? Because there could be multiple podcasts with the same name. Then we just want to return actually all of the results. So let's not do that. That's a silly idea. Let's say results. It's just going to be podcast objects filter, where the title kind of contains the value that we're looking for. So let's say Django string contains say Django model query string like making queries. I know there is some kind of like query where things look kind of like. We don't want a single object. Field lookups. Exact. We don't want an exact match. Case insensitive contains. Let's do contains for the time being, and if we ever use Postgres, maybe we can use some more complicated lookups. So we can say title contains the search term, and then instead of like the search here, we just want to say results. It's going to be results, and then on the search page we can say if or for result in results, and for if there is like empty, then we can say no results found. If not, we can return each result. So let's try this and just try typing in like Python. It's going to return talk Python to me. It's interesting that it's rendered it in the warning. Oh, okay, yeah, that's why. Yeah, this is what we want. So maybe we display this like in a very simple table. So we can steal our table component from the podcast list. No, from the podcast detail for the episodes that we have here. So let's do a lovely bit of copy paste. Then I want to say stick you in there. I realize we can't actually do it this way. We need to say if results else. Let's stick this up here. Then we want to say for result in results. We just want to show the result itself. Let's refresh, see what happens. Oh no. If, else, end if. There we go. Okay, so we do have a link here. Maybe we can actually link to the podcast. Let's change this back to end if. This is not going to be, we don't need this class anymore. I'm going to say podcast or result.get absolute URL, and then just whatever the string is for the result. It's going to link to talk Python to me. So maybe we just type talk Python. Alright, that search is working well enough for me. And if you copy paste URL, that seems to work. Maybe if you just copy paste, I would like this to work if you don't include the HTTPS. I think that should be valid. How could we do this? We need to do like a case insensitive search for the URL, it seems. So let's do views. Let's think about how we could achieve this. Right now we're matching exactly on the search term. So the search term doesn't have the scheme, and this doesn't have the scheme. Then there's not going to be any overlap. let's park that and not worry about it for now, and revisit this potentially later on, because I imagine this search is going to get a bit more complicated as things advance. I think what I would like to focus on now is potentially importing feeds, or just hardening the parser by trying out, different popular podcasts that exist out there on the internet. Alrighty, see you in the next episode.